to do a vlog on one of the mistakes I made back 12 years ago, my 1999 contest season. Little history back then, I didn't really know too much about nutrition, and my approach was pretty much one of that. I believed at that time that you had to be pretty hardcore about the food you ate and pretty strict with the diet. And I correlated being hardcore as progress, bringing my best condition by being very disciplined and taking things to the extreme. Um, Back then, I didn't really keep track of things on computer. I did it in an old school notebook, and this is actually from 1999. You can see my body weight. Um, I think this was like weigh-ins at a certain different time of the day, and then here is the date, June 24th, 1999. You can see what my diet consisted of: shredded wheat with protein shakes, rice cakes, shredded wheat. That's pretty much I had ate. This was a high day, and you can see I had over 500 grams of carbs. But yeah, back then I did a lot of carb cycling, just because I probably read an article that I know read an article, then I just followed it. Never really thought to myself and questioned the reasoning behind those articles. I just read an article and followed things that was written in a magazine. So made a lot of mistakes by following bad advice and information that it really pertained to me at that time. So yeah, this was leading up to the NPC Monterey Bay Classic. I actually wrote an article on the 3D website about some of those mistakes I made during that show, that season. And one of them was definitely just eating the same bland, tasteless foods, um, thinking that I had to do that in order to get shredded. And what ended up happening, I became malnutrition pretty much. I was lacking vitamin K because I didn't have no vegetables in my diet, no green vegetables. Vitamin K is in green leafy vegetables. So, long story short, I was in the shower one day shaving my arms because that's what us bodybuilders do. We shave our arms, and I had a little pin-sized nick that I cut my elbow, little tiny little pin-sized hole in the shower, and all of a sudden I started seeing some blood. And next thing I know, I look up and literally there was a geyser shooting out of my arm, just a stream of blood. I mean, so I put my finger on it, tried to apply some pressure to stop that bleeding, and I held there for about a good minute, let go of it. Sure enough, that thing just continued to spew blood, and I started freaking out a little bit and couldn't get it to stop. Kept trying to put more pressure on it, couldn't get it to stop. Here I am in the shower, wet, so I had to turn the shower off, try to dry myself. There's blood everywhere. Ended up getting it to stop by putting a band-aid on it really tight, and eventually it stopped. But I ended up doing some research, figured out that yeah, I wasn't eating vitamin K, and at the time I wasn't taking a multivitamin, so I was definitely lacking some vitamin K, and I wouldn't doubt if I was lacking a lot of other nutrients as well, just because I was eating rice cakes, shredded wheat, chicken, protein shakes. That's it. Sodium levels at that time, going by my notes, um, roughly, on average, you're looking at 300 milligrams a day. That's it. At the time, I thought, sodium was going to make you hold water, so I drastically cut my sodium. And yeah, I looking back on that, I can't believe that I was that low in sodium. And I can't recall if I actually was lightheaded a lot or not. I don't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me if I was, because low sodium equals low blood pressure, which equals lightheadedness. So definitely don't want to cut your sodium, and it's pretty important. Make sure you have enough sodium in your diet. So that was some of the things I did that was pretty dumb. Obviously, I've changed my ways since then, but yeah. So that was part of my issues back then, and even cutting water I cut water, and not just days, leading up to the show. I was cutting water, you know, weeks in advance. Not, I mean, I would still get enough water, but I was, monitoring my water intake, which is pretty ridiculous. You definitely need water for survival. Common sense tells you need water, and so cutting water is definitely not something you want to do. And actually, the peak week of that show, I actually cut my water intake three days in advance. It was like a quarter and a gallon, I think, 3 or 4 days in advance, and I cut that in half Thursday, and then on Friday I was drinking like 2 to 3 ounces prior to the show with each meal. So I think I was eating 6 meals a day. So I was like drinking like between 12 to 18 ounces for Friday that whole day. Um, I could do that right now in one sitting with a glass. So I ended up getting pretty severely dehydrated that night, Friday before, as I was laying there. I was laying in bed. My nose started to sink in, and my wife at the time looked at me and told me, "You need to drink some water." And of course, I was so stubborn and didn't want to jeopardize my conditioning. I pretty much argued with her, and she pretty much begged me because she was pretty scared to drink some water. She went and got like 4 ounces of water, and pretty much I drank that just because out of her fear, and I didn't even want to do that. I ended up drinking it, and 4 ounces of water at that point was pretty pointless. It didn't really do much. And the next day, day of the show, I continued, 2 to 3 ounces with each meal. I actually cut more sodium, made sure my sodium was almost zero, and actually was loading potassium pills. So you could just say that my conditioning was flat as a pancake, but at the time I thought I was, shredded. Which, looking back at pictures, like, no, you were not shredded, you were flat. I didn't look good whatsoever. But I ended up going into that show. I can't recall the weight. I think I was like 161, maybe 162. Ended up winning my class, but I did cramp on stage. Go figure, no sodium, loaded up on potassium, no water. Yeah, of course you're gonna cramp. Yeah, I won my class. So I just figured, hey, I won my class. That's probably the way it should be done. And I continued to do that the following year. I was getting ready for the INBF Northwest Natural in Oregon. For the first 6-7 weeks, I was following the same plan as I normally do, and I ended up getting a phone call from Bob Bell, promoter of the California Mayhem. We talked. He talked about my prep, asked me some questions, what I was doing, let him know, the things I was doing, and he pretty much steered me in the right direction, you could say. Opened my eyes up to really common sense things. Weigh and track your food. Make sure you're drinking water. Do cardio. Train smart. It's real common sense stuff, but at the time I was so, I guess, brainwashed by all the misinformation I was, reading at, Flex magazine, all the typical bodybuilding magazines, that I wasn't allowing myself to think for myself and to question these tactics. I was previously was winning, so I was thinking, okay, this stuff works, and I'm just gonna keep doing it because it's working. But after that conversation with Bob, and 6 weeks later after that, I went to the show, won the middleweight class, had a completely different physique, much fuller, much sharper, a lot more conditioned. That yeah, it definitely opened my eyes up. And I would say I still had a lot to learn at that point, but just having that person with the right knowledge steer me away from all of the crap you see in the magazines and now on the internet. I mean, there's countless articles that it's just so much information that is not common sense, I should say. I mean, if you let your common sense guide you and you keep things simple and basic, it's pretty, I would say, eye-opening. At least for me, it was. And now I'm allowed to not allowed to, but I've realized that I need to think for myself. If I was to get locked up in a room and say figure it out on your own, I would think that most of us would pretty much be able to think for ourselves and use common sense and be able to really understand how your body's feeling and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So, having now, that's been what, since 2012 years, to really learn on my own and think for myself, I've really dialed in what works for me the best. Um, it's always good to have someone, because there's so much misinformation out there, it's hard to decipher what's good, what's not good. So having, a coach that is pretty knowledgeable, that's been in the game for a while and understands, how to structure, programs, how to structure diet, how to structure cardio, and someone's telling you, they can get you shredded in 8 weeks, 12 weeks. You're going to be a champion in 12 weeks. That's pretty much far fetched. This sport takes quite a while to become towards the top, and even 26 years later, I'm still learning about myself and getting better and better. So, anyways, that's some of the things I did in my past that was pretty downright scary if you think about it. I would say, I mean, I wasn't close to death, but closer than I should have been. That's for sure. And this last prep, all the way in 2011 to the Yorton Cup, I had a variety of foods. Everybody knows I eat cake. Everybody knows I had ice cream. I've had all kinds of different types of foods, plenty of vegetables, plenty of fruits, and it's the best I've ever felt. Um, there was only a week or two where I felt deprived, and that was because I just cut my calories a little low, but it wasn't because I was cutting different types of foods out. And yeah, I pretty much learned that balance and allowing yourself time to get ready is the best route to go. Back then, it was always the 12-week diet, but now, I mean, 47 weeks I dieted, and yeah, it's my best condition yet. And I know a lot of people say, well, fear of you're going to lose size if you diet too long, but how are you going to lose size if you're getting in enough calories? You're not overdoing your cardio and you're not overdoing your training. I mean, it's not magic. One day, 1 week longer than 12 weeks is not going to, all of a sudden, you're going to lose muscle. So to me, it's like a more conservative approach, a smarter approach, and pick your spots, when to push, when not to push. So it's just about being smarter, giving yourself time, and keeping things simple. And you're trying to decipher what's good information, what's bad information out there. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to touch on as far as that. That was one of my enlightening experiences in my career, was that simple phone call that was probably like a 10 to 15-minute phone call that totally changed my outlook on the sport. I mean, who knows? I could have been still doing the same stupid tactics. And the only reason I was winning back in the 90s was simply because my symmetry was good and I had enough size to barely squeak out some wins. Definitely wasn't because of the conditioning or the way I was prepping. So, I mean, the way that bringing the conditioning and the way I prep now is the reason where I am now. So, anyways, that's enough for. I can't believe I just talked for 14 minutes. I went by really fast. But anyway, I'm going to leave you with a training highlight today. I did overhead press and hit a PR, 200 for 3. So things are going well in my training, and I'll just keep pushing from here. And I will think of another crazy, stupid thing I've done in my past, and hopefully I can touch on it and maybe help anybody not make the same mistakes I made. But anyways, keep training hard, keep training smart, and most importantly, keep training naturally. All right.